Hi everybody, this is Christian back from Blue vs. Orange TCG here with special guest in Season 5, Player Champion. Please introduce yourself, Player Champion.
What's up, everybody? Dan Arnold here, as per usual. It's actually, I think, my first time on your channel, Christian. So,
I think it
what
is,
the hell?
actually.
Why did it take so long?
Wow.
I mean, I had to win an entire season to get on your channel. Like, is this real? Just kidding, bud. Love you, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. I think most of the time I appear on videos, it's usually in your channel. So you have the honor of being the first time on here. But you know,
here we go.
But more important than first time being on my channel, congratulations on winning Season 5 champion by a pretty good margin, if I do recall the point structure. If I remember correctly. Yeah, you were like 7 points ahead of me, which I have second place.
Yeah, it was really close to the last event. You know, I think we had 5 points of one another, and then there was 2 of us that were tied, and then 2 of us or 4 of us that were within 2 points. So it was really close. It was definitely like it could have been won by any of 5 players, depending on how like everything ran out. So
yeah,
that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. It was like 2 ties for second place and 2 ties for third place, I believe. Is what the points looked like. Yeah. I tried my best.
It was a real tight race to the end, for sure. I mean, and honestly, last season, I think it was like a 23 or like I'm sorry, I think it was like 22, 21, 20 going into the last event.
Yep.
For Wyatt to take it home. It was a really tight race last time too. So it's really cool seeing the race is always tight between the players at the top. That's always fun to see.
It is fun. It gives like so something that you've done recently is like the top 8 profiles for the players of the that made that season.
Shout out to Smurf. That was his idea to keep doing those again.
That's a great idea.
It's a great thing to give everyone a chance to talk. I love that. I love the ability to give people the spotlight and the opportunity to talk about their events and stuff like that.
Absolutely. One of my favorite parts of that you included was, did you have a rival this season? And I think I love that. I love that that communal feel of like, oh, there's someone this season that like I always get paired up against, or I'm in the nick in the running of like the season championship with that person. It gives like a really fun feel. Like I personally love the idea of being someone's Gary Oak. Like more like that idea appeals to me more than it probably should.
That's fair. That's fair. But I don't think anyone's name. Oh, I take that back. I believe Wyatt named you, right? So there you go. You're Wyatt's Gary Oak. So.
Yep. Yeah. I am Wyatt's Gary Oak. Ooh, that might be my profile picture on the Discord now. It's just to be a Gary Oak.
I'm all about it. All about it. Too funny.
Absolutely. So anyway, where was I going with that again? Oh, I enjoyed how that aspect ties into the player race quite a bit. One thing that I wanted to ask you, Mr. Season Champ, and I believe I asked the same question to Wyatt, who won last season 4 on the last video, was what was like some of your goals going into like this season? Right, especially because like you're in an interesting position because you're also a designer for the ATP for ATP sets, and so I'd imagine your motivations for what you want to see yourself play and see in the events are always kind of different, depending on like someone who just comes to play and compete, right?
Yeah. So for me personally, season champ is not necessarily my goal at all. My biggest goal, of course, comes from the design front and just like TO and all those things where it's just like I want people to enjoy the formats, make sure the ban list is correct, make sure everyone is having fun, there's no issues in the community, all those things. That's my most important thing for every season that we do. And what did we do last season that didn't work? What can we change to make it better? As like, for example, this season specifically, we basically focused mostly on Titan 1, as it being 4 of the 7 events that we had ran. And I think that was a big deal. I think that was really important. I think people really enjoyed Titan 1. I think if we'll talk about it obviously, but when you go from the first event to the last event, you can kind of see the way the meta, what it turned into and what people did with the information, which I think is really cool. But honestly, for me, the number one goal I normally always have is I generally like to get as many reps with as many different decks as possible. So my only real goal for the season was to play a different deck in every event, which I did. So other than that, everything else just works out. and it was a lot of fun. You know, it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of innovation in this format, in the Titan 1 format. You know, a lot of the deck that took it down for Junkyard, and even the finals of that event were two vastly different things from what we had seen before in Junkyard's past. Same thing goes for Full Constructed, and obviously we had the Primus 1v1 event, which was just, you know, a lot of fun and us basically trying out new things, right? So yeah, to sum up, most important thing to me is making sure everyone else is happy and everyone else is having fun. That's realistically the only thing that I'm ever going to care about. Winning is always nice, doing well is always nice, but that's definitely not something that I plan to happen.
It was just a nice little bonus that came along the way. Like, hey, I took it down.
I mean, it is nice. It's cool. You know, I obviously, you know, before WotC walked away from the game and all those fun things, obviously I was one of the most competitive players in the game, right? I mean, I had that cred, that street cred, I would say. But since taking over as a designer, it's never really been like my, oh, I need to do this. It's really more like, okay, I just need to make sure we don't break this, you know? So
yeah, absolutely.
That's just, it's just it's a way different mindset for me now. Like, obviously I'm happy when I win. Like, I'm never not going to be happy about winning, but it's definitely not like the goal that is most important anymore.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think, and why I kind of mentioned this too in the last video, like, even though like your designers, you're still like competitive players at heart, so it's still very nice that you have the opportunity to not just design sets and kind of sit back, but you still get to play and like get a little bit of that competitive itch scratched and whatnot through this, which is good.
Yeah, I think it would be impossible for us to stay on top of like the ban list and stay on top of the design goals of every set without playing. It would just be impossible. I think it's just even the player interaction, you know, on a day-to-day basis with whoever your opponents are and throughout the different events, having the ability to like lock in an hour time slot with someone that you don't get to talk to every day, like those things are important for the whole process. Yeah,
it makes me wonder like if some of the people like Drew, like if he played in like PPT Dallas and had to sit across from like the Cog Daring Escape deck, like what would that have looked like from a design aspect, from having to sit across that and play against it other than just hear about it, right? I think it's a huge deal, right? You never know, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely like figuring out the puzzle versus watching it on a stream. You know, you know, not to mention, quote, creating the puzzle, a whole other atmosphere, right?
Oh, so, absolutely. Yeah. I also have the you put in, because you won Season Champion, you got to design your own playmat that you won. So you put it in the Discord. I have the image up right now in OBS. The sweet Jetfire mat that you made. Really huge fan of it. Again, like, I'm very jealous of this mat and the one that the Season 4 champ mat. But you know,
you missed out. You missed out on the design, on a new design piece, right? That's what happened there.
Well, no kidding. But like, I think for me, like, and this kind of is like something that I've really enjoyed ATP doing recently. It was kind of changing their prize structure, is introducing these custom mats every event. They feel like such unique trophies. Like I wonder if I can pull mine up real quick. The Alpha Triumph mat, which is still probably one of my favorite mats I've had that I got from the last Volcom event.
No, that one's one of the special ones, right? That has the special background.
It does, absolutely, it does. It has the moon-scaped view on the back. It's so awesome.
Yeah, the art on that was just too good to pass up.
Absolutely, I remember.
It was too good to pass up.
I remember seeing, you know, because oftentimes you can see what the playmat's going to look like from the poster of the Smash page. I remember seeing that, and I thought to myself, like, I've got to win that. I have to try really hard to win that Volcom event.
That's fair.
It worked out.
It was a good one.
It was a really good one.
That's probably my favorite, one of my favorite mats of the season, I think. Because I felt the exact same way about the Primus 1v1. Because I think despite any difficulties, like one of my favorite cards ever. So
that's a good card.
Like, even after I designed that mat, I sent it to Wyatt. Wyatt's like, "That's really hot." I'm like, "Yeah, I really, really want that one."
And look at that. And we're gonna go into that and see if you actually won that or not. Spoiler alert: you actually did win that one.
I did.
Yeah. All right.
I had the will to fight in that one. You know what I'm saying?
You had some. Well, we're gonna talk about will to fight, I'm sure. All right. Why don't we jump into the season itself and jump into the deck list. So for the people watching, this is going to be the same one as we did for Season 4. We're going to go through each event that happened in Season 5, the monthlies and the one-day events. We're gonna go over what won that deck first for the event, and then we're gonna go over what the season champ played and talk through their thoughts about what they were hoping to do with that deck and whatnot going into the event. So we got our first deck list up here. This is the November one-day event that was there to kick off ATP 5, and this was taken down by ATP 5 Jetfire, Secret Jetfire.
Yep.
This is a deck that I when I saw the spoilers for ATP 5, I expected this deck to see a lot of play, and I think funny enough, like a little spoiler for like the whole season, this deck didn't actually. A lot of people didn't play this deck, like as a whole. It was
this deck had 2 pilots.
2 pilots, which shocks me.
John Palmer and myself were the only 2 people that registered Jetfire, Decepticon Jetfire in the entire season through 4 Titan 1 events and 1 full con. You can play them in full con too, obviously.
Yeah.
This deck. Like, I mean, you played against this in the finals. I'm not sure if you played against it before the finals or not.
No,
I don't
never
remember, but
I did actually. Not with that deck though. Not with that deck. That I actually did play against this list, pretty similar to this list, but not with the list I piloted for the one-day event beforehand. Yeah.
Yeah, they're actually. I remember that. I remember seeing like several people pilot this in testing, early on. And just no one brought him to the table that day.
Yeah,
except for Mr. Palmer, of course.
Mr. Palmer, who and to give him credit, he took it down. And you have a video actually going through this list a little bit, and I think like the most interesting thing about this list is, of course, like how many 3-ofs are in this list. Like this list wants to be as consistent in what it does as possible. Like it doesn't want to have like any like the onesie tricks, right?
I wouldn't say this list wants it, but John Palmer wants to do that.
John Palmer wants it.
John Palmer special for sure.
Yeah.
He's very, very on par with always just having maximum numbers on things. That's just the way he likes to play the game.
Yep.
Same thing with the consistencies of blues versus like mixed pip colors. As you see, there's 0 orange pips in this deck list.
Big old 35 blues too.
That is just on theme for John Palmer. So that's the way Palmer builds deck. It's the way he succeeds or fails.
Yeah. So I mean he won this event, so you can't fault him too much for that one. I think
no, absolutely not.
Yeah, and I'm really curious because to talk a little bit more about this list, like I think like the character Jetfire itself is like everything about like his text box is incredibly strong, but I think the 13 stars is maybe like a little bit like intimidating for people to like to want to play with and pick up for whatever reason. At least that's something that I've discovered when seeing people play with characters and play with cards with certain star costs. Like 13 is like kind of an intimidating number.
Yeah, I mean if we go back to season 3, I want to say, or was it season 4? No, it was season 3. We go back to season 3 of Overlord. There was a bunch of players that played Overlord.
Yeah.
Through season 3 in the early events. I mean, we're talking like 3, 4, 5 different players probably. But in season 4, once the legends came and the highest legend was 11 stars at the time, that number kind of decreased. You didn't really see too many people picking up a Shockwave or picking up a Galaxy Prime and things like that. So that number 13 is a pretty high star cost for a metagame when you're coming off of ATP 4 in season 4 that just didn't really have any of these types of deck lists running around. Like if they did, they were very minimal.
Yeah.
So that I think that specifically for this event, this was the first event with HP 5. No one really knew what to expect or what was like obvious, I would say, in the metagame. And this was just a credit to Palmer. Palmer said, I believe in one of the even in that stream, this was just like his favorite card from the set, and he was really pumped to play it and check it out. And obviously, like having partners like C-Spade and Ratchet really helped. The Ratchet was a big deal from ATP 5 also for this list. But yeah, I mean, I remember like watching him play a few games, and he was on stream a couple times that day, and he just was like really tight knit, winning games. Some of the games were tilted, some of the games were not. But the deck just you can look at it and it's just a well-oiled machine for its goal in the game, and it does it really, really well and super consistent.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact the timing on the Jetfire Rise is also like kind of tricky for an opponent too. Like having to sacrifice an upgrade if you have an upgrade on a character is like really tough. Like I can't tell you like how many times like I think in the finals against him I played like a turn 1 pocket processor, and then it just got blown away. Like once I brought the Jetfire because I forgot he could just scrap something. Like That was
Yeah,
worthless.
especially because it was the first, like the first event. So it was like, I'm sure in the moment you're like, oh, obviously, like you're a playtester, you know what that card did
Yeah.
months before it existed. But like it's just one of those things where it's the first time you're actually playing against it competitively against a new player that is not in the testing table, obviously.
Yep.
And it's just one of those things that you're gonna forget. And I think honestly, like it's a pretty easy thing to forget, actually.
I think it is.
Especially because all the different legends, have the different arise triggers, so it's really easy to like forget like something subtle like that. But it's a big deal. I mean, then again, 13 stars, right? He has to have a good effect when he rises. Obviously, you're committing
I would hope so.
half your team to this character.
Yeah, for a six attack character too. Once he arises, like the whole time, like 6 attack is a big deal for 13 stars. But he makes up for it. Yeah, why don't we move on to, because you did not play in this event, so.
No, I did not. But what was Dan doing? Dan was part of hosting a 24-hour stream for Extra Life. Shout out!
Right.
I wore the shirt on purpose. A lot of fun. That was a great stream. I've said it a million times. I will keep saying it because we're gonna do it again this year. Shout out to everybody that helped participate, played in the event, donated to the cause. It was a great time, and I definitely look forward to doing it again. However, I will not be doing another 24-hour stream because that was crazy talk.
I bet that was insane. That probably was pretty nuts to have to go through after a while. I'm surprised you didn't bring the medal.
The last like 4 hours, I was straight carried by a friend of mine in my World of Warcraft guild. Like he carried me through the night.
That's what friends are for. All right, so moving on to the next event, we have the this is the November Titan 1 Open. So we actually kicked off the season with a Titan 1 event one day and another Titan 1 Monthly, like you mentioned before. And this one was taken down by our good old Grizzly Giblets, Richard Wyatt, with a deck he calls Pocket Full of Sunshine. I don't understand what that name means. I'm not even gonna lie.
It's been, so I think it was something about the 5-color thing going on in his deck, but it's also been renamed to like double tens.
Yeah, double tens.
He had a new name for it in his profile. I can't remember what it is right now, but it's had many names through the season.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and this is a double dealer list. Double dealer Highbrow and Scourge, which took advantage of Highbrow's +1 to reveal effect with double dealer, which when you flip to alt 1, you get to reveal a top card of your deck and put in your hand. But if the opponent has a legend character, you get to play instead. Well, with Highbrow, you get to do that twice, so you can potentially like flip to alt 1 and play 2 cards on the top of your deck. It was pretty insane going into the events because I think a lot of people were really excited to play a lot of legend characters, and this just kind of ate up those decks alive. This is a super mixed up deck too, as you can tell. This is probably like the first instance because interesting enough, the last one-day events, the 2 finalists did not have Knack in their deck at all. They were not Knack decks, but this is a straight Knack deck to its very core.
Yes, absolutely. It went from a deck, 2 decks in the finals not playing any Knacks to, like, in the month-long, it's all over the top 8 and finals and all.
Yeah, there was, like, maybe one deck that didn't play a Knack anywhere. Maybe one in the top 8. I'd have to double check.
If I scroll up...
If you scroll up. Video Teletraan, you can just check those out.
It's tough to say. Shout out to Teletraan, obviously, they make it so easy for us. It's hard to say because there's 2 different copies of Knack, but...
Oh, that makes it tough. Yeah, there's the Primus one.
It looks like it's mostly... I think it's not in... It wasn't in the OA Skylinks list, I know that, I'm pretty sure.
Sure.
Yeah, but it's in most of them, for sure. But the top 4, I believe, all had Knacks in their list. Okay, so the top 4 did not. One of them was the Alpha Trion, which he is a Knack, so does that count, I guess?
I guess that counts. Kinda counts.
But yeah, no, this deck is phenomenal. Wyatt was very on top of this. I believe Wyatt did not play in the Extra Life event. He couldn't play, but I'm pretty sure he would have played this if he had.
Yeah.
So he had been working on this deck all through, like, for league games and stuff like that, playing a bunch of it. And obviously it's a very, very good anti-legend deck.
Yeah.
In this particular event, the only match loss he had was the Dinobots, which I know he lost 2-0. It was like a really unfavorable matchup for him.
Super unfavorable,
Other than that, he had a lot of tight games, a lot of close games, but what this deck does really, really extremely well, and I know Wyatt's talked about this plenty of times, but the sideboard plan, it is this for those of you that have played other games, it's a very mid-rangey deck that has the ability to reach, and has the ability to like, okay, I can go on defensive when I need to, I can go on aggressive when I need to, pretty well in the main deck. And then the sideboard option is just like, okay, I'm gonna screw the control option, and I'm gonna be the aggressor now. And I think that's it's a real nice change. You don't have too many decks that are able to do that. I do think this isn't the only deck in the metagame that was able to do that really well, but it was one of the better ones. So yeah, I think that was the real core strength of this, is that in its matchups where it like was not the controller, it was able to go, okay, well, I'll take out my Highbrow and my Grax, and I'll just board in Megatron, and I'll still be like, I'll just now lean towards an aggressive game plan, and try and wedge my opponent out of games.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can even like looking at the pip coloration, like he's still like on like the 19 blues, the 13 oranges, but the big one is like the 21 blacks. Yep. This deck can go into any type of like field to play it wants to. It can be controlling if it wants to, with all the secret actions running. It can be aggressive. It's got the 3 grenade launchers. It's got Metallicado and Belligerence, but it also has 3 opportune offensives. You're running tons of blacks here because you're like any Merc deck is naturally going to have a Pierce somewhat like strategy in some fashion.
Yeah, I mean, most of them are going to have 5-6 minimum black pips because of opportunism and opportunity defensive and stuff like that. And he even has the opportunity repairs in here as well.
Yeah, exactly. He had the Mag Ray before it was banned.
Right.
Only
that's
one fusion board actually was talking to me.
Mag Ray before his ban is that's notable.
Yeah, the other notable card is Conversion Engine. This is the last event that Conversion Engine was banned, and this deck pretty much solidified Conversion Engine being banned.
I think it did. I think
it was like the
more
camel.
or less. I honestly, I don't even think Double Deal was the biggest event to this card, honestly, but it was just one of those. In particular, like this event, like this deck showcased just what was wrong with Conversion Engine all along a little bit more. It was almost like we needed a reminder of like, oh yeah, triple changers exist and they can do the thing, and we probably don't want them to do the thing, So
yeah, you'd have to make like it's just like such a hard card to design for, because then you have to make triple changers that don't really like. They don't have flip effects. And I think that's really weird to have a character that's meant to flip a bunch, not have flip effects. If
you got more than 2 modes, you better be doing some cool stuff.
You better be, right?
Just like takes all the fun out of it.
For the opponent at least. For the player playing, it's a lot of fun. It's a good time.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, deck's super solid, and it's funny because like looking at this deck now and then seeing it even like. At the end of the season and going into season 6, like, gosh, there's like what, like almost 10 total cards that have to be changed because they've gotten banned at this point for this list. Like Belligerence, Mag Ray, End Hostilities, Knack, Conversion Engine. It's 5 different cards right there.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what this deck was able to do with the Knack. Being able to play the Knack so easily, so well. I mean. Post board, all of your characters pick it up pretty easily. Obviously, the Highbrow doesn't pick it up, but your other guys do, which is fine. Yep. This deck was just very, very good at being a Knack deck, so it enabled you to have that, that scrap pile extension of your hand, really often in the game, which is what made it so powerful. Definitely what gave the deck a ton of wins.
Yeah, absolutely. Alright, so moving on from the deck that won, we're going to go to what you played that event, which is lovingly called Jempty Time.
It was, yes.
And this is a deck that was pretty hyped up for a little bit in the Discord in the beginning. It actually saw a lot of play in ATP4 for a while from our good friend.
Shout out to Soviet Bear.
Shout out to that Arizona Soviet Bear, man. Like, coming up with this list. That list was pretty mean in HB4, in like a pretty aggressive metagame. It handled itself really well. It definitely got way better here.
I think it had multiple top 4s with this list. So
sure did.
This deck has been, it's had succession across different seasons for sure.
Yeah, and especially going into like this one, right? So, what was some of the best parts about playing this list in the event that you played it in, and some of the reason why you wanted to play it?
So I'm pretty sure I went undefeated in Swiss with this. If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And the deck was very solid. It's it plays to like there's going to be a theme of my season, and it starts here because this is the first event. I think in every event except for Junkyard, I basically played blue-black Pierce decks. That just really fit my theme this particular season, I would say.
Yeah.
But this deck, shout out to the mag rays in this deck also.
Shout out to that mag ray. Yep.
I still think this is probably one of the better decks in the metagame.
I agree.
Snapdragon punishes a lot of things, and I mean like a lot of things. There were some games that I probably like just won because Snapdragon was on my team.
Yeah.
And I know it's a little ballsy to main deck Snapdragon, at least, it's not, it's only really been done in this type of lineup, really. There's some other lineups. I know you did the ProQuest forum and everything like that.
Yeah.
The character quest, sorry.
No, it's okay. That's
but, this deck is great. This deck does a lot of things. It's a lot similar to the deck that won the event, where it's like, this deck can defend, you can play control, and then you can also just be like, I'm gonna 10 Pierce 10 you.
Yep.
Pretty easily, actually. So it was a lot of fun to play for me. One of the things I said, like, I always wanted to play a different deck each event. Well, if we go back to season 4, like in season 4, I didn't play Starscream in any event. I didn't play Scourge in any event. I never played Snapdragon in any event. So this was like the perfect deck to bring and be like, I'm gonna play all 3 of these characters in one. Jemty was hyping it up, and Jemty had just come back really to the Discord from a hiatus because of, he just had a bit of a burnout from testing and things like that, like we all do from time to time. And he was just like, listen, Dan, just play my deck for me, hopefully you do well with it. And it turned out pretty good. Like I said, I went undefeated in Swiss. I ended up losing to the second place deck, which was Jason's. Jason, he was playing Impactor Sea Spray Hot Rod.
Yep.
I will say this much: in the season, that loss against Jason was probably my worst loss of the entire season.
There's a video of it, I believe, isn't there?
The game in game 3, on basically a game-winning swing for myself, I attack with my Starscream, who has innate Pierce 2.
Yep.
And I flipped 6 cards because I hit a white, and all I needed was Pierce 3. And I didn't get there in my blue-black Pierce deck.
That's
so
unfortunate.
Felt really bad.
Yikes.
So yeah, it was definitely a huge turning point in that game, and it was a big deal. It was probably the worst loss of the season, I would say, because it was one of those where like, I can't believe I didn't get there for Pierce 3 with my Starscream attack. Like my Ghost Starscream didn't get to Pierce 3. I'm like, man, all right.
It was like one of those like times during the game where you went to bed and you're still thinking about it like the night, like the morning after, like God, you had a dream about it. Like you didn't see any black pips. It was only blue.
I definitely thought about it for a little while. Like I just can't believe I flipped like literal just no blacks. It was just like, man, like I even hit the white, Christian. I hit the white and still didn't get there.
And the worst part is like you run 3 white blacks. You run the opportunities. You didn't even get that.
I literally hit the surprise attack. Yeah.
Hit the surprise attack. Shout out to the surprise attack and the piercing blaster in this list, right?
Yeah, there was one of each. Yeah, that was just to preface this one. This list was 100% Jemty time, which is why it's called Jemty time. So I just took his list. I think the only thing I did was change the sideboard a little bit because I was not about to play Null Ray Starscream in my sideboard. I'm also on record saying that this sideboard was trash. I think in like every game, basically, all I boarded in was Withdrawal Protocol and Downfall Protocol. I think the rest of the board, I think I might have boarded in Magnetic, like a Mag Ray once or twice, but I never boarded in the Belligerences. I never had to board in the stable covers. The Metallicados definitely didn't board it in. So like, if I were to redo this deck, that sideboard would look entirely different now.
Would you have played the Null Ray, knowing that that might have been the problem?
No, absolutely not.
I mean, if you had the Null Ray on Starscream, you would have had bold 4, so you actually might have gotten the Pierce 3 though. So.
You know what? You got me. I also could have just drew like any weapon that gives Pierce.
Or a handheld blaster, which is effectively just half of Null Ray.
Maybe that extra bolt would have got there. You never know.
You never know. You never know. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of this list. I'm actually surprised again people didn't try to play this more. But I think I think it just kind of speaks to Titan 1. Like there's so much opportunity to play whatever you want in Titan 1 that I would say this is definitely like a tier 1 deck in the metagame for what was around. But like people still wanted to play what they wanted, so I think it's telling. I think this deck will still be pretty good in ATP 6 as well. Not that we know a whole lot.
I think there's a good chance.
Yeah.
I think it does a lot. It's just the list itself is solid. It's definitely not knack dependent, unlike how I feel about the deck that won the event.
Yeah.
I feel like the deck that won the event is way more knack dependent. This deck is just a natural good blue-black Pierce deck that, you know, there's only 5 secret actions in there. Like without the knacks, you probably just play 2 more secret actions, and you just give yourself a little more freedom, you know?
Absolutely.
Obviously, you have to take end hostilities out, but that's okay. You can make up for those.
You can put Hidden Fort. You can put Hidden Fort. It's not a big deal.
Hidden Fort's thing.
Hidden Fort's pretty good. Hidden Fort's pretty good. Yeah. And, you know, Snapdragon's a character. Snapdragon's a character. You know. Shout out to
Snapdragon is not bad.
He is not bad at all. Alright, moving on from the November event, we're going to go to the next one-day event, which this one's going to be easy. This was the Toys for Tots event. And this one was not only won by the season champion, or it was won by the season champion is what I was going to say. So we don't have to look at 2 deck lists.
That's very true. It's very true. You're welcome. I saved us some time.
You did save us some time. So thank you for that. You saved us a lot of time. I won't even lie about that. So what'd you play, Dan?
I played Aerial Bots.
Look at that.
And the funny thing about this event is, unlike last time, right? This is a shout out to my boy Jempty again. Unlike last time where I played Jempty's deck because he couldn't play and he wanted me to play for him and everything like that. I did the opposite this time. I actually played this deck in spite of Jempty.
In spite of Jempty.
There was a lot of players testing Aerial Bots leading up, you know, just like in the Discord in like December and stuff like that. And like everybody was just petrified of Magray. Like they were just petrified of it. And I'm like, all right, like if you get Magray, you get Magray. Like that's fine. You know, like you just take 8, you move on with life, and you try and win the game still.
But you just do it.
So I literally just played this game because I'm just like, I just want to prove this deck is really good and it's really legitimate. And I think it's been an oversight in the metagame for like ever. You know, even in like the past year or so, basically at this point, you know, you have Frank who had won an event with Aerial Bots, and then you had myself that had, you know, won an event with Aerial Bots. So like, Aerial Bots has 2 wins in Titan 1, like
it's good
in the last year.
Yeah,
it's a deck that isn't going away. It's still very playable. It's honestly, it's probably incredibly underrated as a deck. Especially with the removal of Magnetic Dysfunction Ray, right? Like, huge removal. So yeah, this deck is probably my favorite deck of the season. I'll say that much. It was just a ton of fun. For me, you know, Aerial Bots was always my favorite combiner. I think it was maybe not the first deck I won an event with, but I think it was like definitely the first deck that I won an event with in Combiner and Rise of Combiners metagame, where I went into an event, I went undefeated with them, and then from that point on, like I have a bit of a track record with Aerial Bots actually. Like I went undefeated at Origins to get my queue into top 32 with Aerial Bots.
Nice.
So it's a deck that I've always honed and loved. So it felt good to, for the first time, probably I think since Gen Con that year. I played it in one of the qualifiers at Gen Con. So it was probably since Gen Con of that year that I hadn't played Aerial Bots in an event. So it was definitely sweet to just sleeve them up, play them, and then show off what they can do.
That's really wild, actually. One thing that's really interesting about this list is like the secret actions that you ran. I think you have a really interesting, like, kind of pretty diverse like number of secret actions that you're playing, because like I think the number of playable secret actions for Superion decks is actually higher than most blue decks in general. You know, you got the one stable. You only got 1 Stab Arms and 1 Dad, which I think is actually the most shocking part. It's a blue-black. The Dads are, at least. Why only 1 of each? Yeah.
So here's the real truth. This deck doesn't need to flip, right? Like it just doesn't. Honestly, in some games, it's probably like better that your Skydive doesn't flip because you'll probably take less damage because he just has tough 2.
Fair.
So to me, it wasn't as important as it was to just have the choice. The deck, you know, once you're online and once you're in Superion, you know, you draw a bunch of extra cards throughout the game. Yeah. So that's a big deal. I believe I did have the Pocket Processor. Oh no, I didn't have the Pocket Processor in this deck actually.
2 Absorption Core though.
But you know, there was a lot of testing that I had played Pocket Processor, so from that, I had always like just had I always liked options out of secret actions most of the time. Unlike Palmer, who's like, I want to play 3 of this and 3 of that. I'm the opposite. I just like to have options.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Who knows?
Yep.
Now, granted, the sideboard, kind of fills in some of those things, which I do want to talk about the sideboard after this. But
Sure.
yeah, that is just the epitome of the metagame, right? Like every one of those options there is good into a specific card or deck into the metagame. And I was probably not sure what people were going to play. It is a one-day event, so there's always unexpected things sometimes. People get a little crazy, so I think it was more of like, I just want to be in everything bagel.
Sure.
So like, I'm just going to like play a little of everything, and if it works out, awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. How good were the Downfall protocols for you?
Downfall Protocol is a phenomenal card. I would almost argue that it's actually underplayed.
I could see
but
that.
in this particular deck, really what Downfall Protocol is End Hostilities 3 and 4, and then of course in the sideboard there's the 5th End Hostilities. The number one card in the game that's going to beat you is not Magnetic Dysfunction Ray, it's Belligerence.
Yeah, it really is Belligerence.
So you just, like, once you're combined, you really need to do everything that you're possibly capable of to not lose to Belligerence, and that's really it. Like, so you gotta play those cards, because even though they're not a blue in your deck, like once you're combined, or like it's only for Silverbolt, that's okay. It's okay. You just put it down and you're like, I don't want to lose to this card. Granted, now that the metagame has changed and Belligerence is not Titan 1, and neither is Magnetic Dysfunction Ray, you probably play 3 dads now, like if we're being honest. You play 3 dads, you play 3, I don't know if you play 3 Hidden Fortifications, but you definitely play some number of Hidden Fortifications.
I'd argue you play the Concealing Contrails over Hidden Fort in this list, but that's just me.
It's possible.
I've loved Concealing Contrails in my era.
It depends on how worried you are about flipping. For me, I think if you go back to Frank's deck, I think Frank had like 18 to 20 black pips in the deck that he won with. And obviously I'm really low on the 13 end. And I'll be honest, I still felt like I probably procced more than you know. I mean, when you do have an 8 bolt, right? So I think it even said what our good friend on teletraan won here. You have an 18% chance to flip blue, black, right? So that's not a bad percentage at all to do it, So
yeah. Well, I think also like this list also kind of showcases like the two directions you can go when you play Superion. Like you can go like a really Pierce heavy route where like your Superion turns are going to be like for 11 Pierce 11 when you want them to, or you really want to lean into the direct damage route that aerial coordinated aerial tactics really gets you. I mean, you're playing the marksmanship. You have 3 scouting missions, which can be a DL2, which is like pretty good in the list. You got the 3 long range volley, which is like the nutsest card in this list.
There's a mistake in the deck. That's not a heavy landing. That's a heavy handed.
Oh, I thought that was heavy handed the whole time. Heavy landing. Tell us about the heavy landing. How often did you get the 6 triggers on your tower to deal 4?
I definitely didn't do that once, but I played heavy-handed quite a bit.
Could you imagine if you could get the full effect of heavy landing in Superion, essentially dealing 4 every time you play it? That's pretty good.
That would be really good. I would have to agree with you.
Yeah. One last thing I just want to say to the mag ray point of the deck, just to kind of add on to what you're saying about like not just like being so afraid of mag ray, but like people shouldn't have been so afraid of playing mag ray. I played against Frank in season 3 when I was playing Seekers. I played Seekers against Frank, who was playing a Superion list. In game 2, I opened my hand with 2 mag rays. And I hit my Starscream trigger before I killed any of his characters. I dealt 17? No.
Yeah.
And more than that, because it was 8 plus 8, 16 plus 4. So I dealt 20 damage to Superion before he combined. And I still almost lost. I was still down to 1 attack. Because that just happens,
Yeah, no, it's like I said, there was just a lot of chatter around this deck auto losing to a Magnetic Dysfunction Ray, and I could not agree more. I could not disagree more, I should say.
Absolutely.
I'm like, no, I don't think that's true. So we're just gonna run it. The one specific thing I want to say is, I think from start to finish, this particular deck was my best deck built in the season. Because the sideboard is probably like the best sideboard I built all season. Hunt Down, I believe, is probably the most underplayed card from ATP 5 across the board against a ton of strategies in the game.
I agree.
And definitely something that if you did not play it in Season 5, you absolutely should play it in Season 6. This card's phenomenal, and it was really good for me. Like, I played against a couple blue secret action decks, and the card was great, because I'm just like, alright, yeah, I'll just get Pierce 2, and I'll just send my dude, and I'll just have like this innate Pierce 8 or something like that on my Superion. And even early, it was just good to play early too. The card's very good, very, very underplayed, and it was probably I think it was the only time I played it all season, because I just didn't feel like I necessarily needed it in any of the other decks I was playing. But in this list, specifically looking for like a black pump spell, if I wanted to up my black count in certain matchups, it was a phenomenal card.
And you know, it's in a lot of the decks, like the Snapdragon Ghost Stream deck, it's actually like a great, I think, like replacement for Knack as well, because you just have the pips.
For sure.
It's a great pump.
It's a really good card. It's a really, really good card.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, moving on from the Toys for Tots event, we're going to the Junkyard Monthly. So he got the winning list here. Open up Discord again. We got the winning list here, played by our good old friend Stefan, playing Lockdown. Track down Lockdown. Yeah. There was a lot of this deck in the event. People were pretty excited about Lockdown.
This was the most played deck in the event.
Yeah,
for sure. I think there was multiples in the top.
I was in top 8 and I played it at least. I think another person did as well.
Yeah, no, it was you. It was just two. It was two, but I think there was like a couple of these like sitting at 9-10 also.
Yeah. I remember playing against like 3.
Most played deck in this event.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember playing against it quite a bit, and the deck's like really solid. Like it's it is like, I'm not sure even how to describe the deck. It just feels like such a classic blue deck. In every shape and form. It's almost like too grindy to a certain extent, to be completely honest. Is very grindy of a deck, because you want to build up the lockdown as big as you can, which, you know, and that takes time. You may not see your hidden forts to run through the deck really fast, but the deck was super good. Can't deny how good the deck was.
Yeah, I mean, the deck was very powerful. It was obviously very new. Track Record came out in HV5, so this was definitely a new addition to the metagame. And I mean, even Bulkhead was new as well. What I thought was really cool is, like, you know, how many times have you seen a double mercenary deck, you know, be viable, let alone like literally tournament winning?
Well, I mean, like, the whole point of mercenaries is you're not really supposed to play them with other mercenaries, right?
Right. Which it's what makes Track Record so interesting, because it's like, you know, it's really promoting that idea. And what I thought was really cool, and this is what, honestly, my true belief of why Stefan won this event, is that Stefan is like the master of too tall.
He is. I've never seen someone play too tall better than Stefan.
He is the master of too tall. He really is. Like, he knows when to do it, and I actually think it's almost a lost art in the game, because I feel like there are times where he goes to too tall and his opponent actually doesn't, like, they don't know how to play against too tall. Like, they just feel like they kind of get flustered, they're not even sure. But Stefan he's very on top of it, he's very about it, and Thunderwing is not a bad character at all, just to be like, alright, beat me, you know?
Yeah, with that base 3 defense, dude.
That's what happened in the finals, you know? Like, in the finals, in this event, like, he played against a really, really tough blue deck, you know? Dreadwing was another, you know, brand new deck that came out, and like the finals was a really, really grindy matchup to watch.
It was.
But he went into too tall, and he was just like, hey, like, I'm gonna keep smacking you, you know? Like, this is what's gonna happen, and we're gonna have to figure out a way to kill both of these giant dudes that on any given turn can hit you for like 10 to 12 damage.
Yeah, and you're.
Yeah, it was really cool. And the last thing I'll say about Stefan's particular play is, like, I had watched a lot of people play this deck. I think Stefan was the only one that did it this way specifically, though, which is also what separated it. Like, the reason probably that he won the event is that I felt a lot of people were way more dependent on, like, Murphy flips and, like, Bulkhead flips, where, like, Stefan, most of his games, he's just like, I'm just gonna continuously filter with Lockdown. So, like, he might have shuffled his deck like 4 times in a given game, because he was just like, filter 2, filter 3, filter, like, he had filter 4 turns. Like, he was the only one that he's like, okay, I just always want to play Hidden Fortification, or I always want to play Leap in the Battle. Like, I always want to have a weapon. And the best way to do that isn't to flicker Mercenary Bait, it's just to continuously flicker to Lockdown, because you just see so many cards. So I really credit to Stefan. Like, you know, he says in the upcoming in the play profile, a little shout out to that, but, you know, he says that, like, he was very shocked that he had won a Junkyard event. It's not a format he's pretty much a fan of, but he played this deck incredibly well, and, like, giant shout out to Stefan for winning this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out, and, like, I did end up playing a very similar list to this, but I do want to say Puffer was a bad call in the main board. I mean, like, horrifically bad call on the main board for me. Like, I wish I had this opportunity to where I could go too tall if I wanted to. But you know what? Instead, I had Bulkhead in my main board, so that every time I lost game 1, which I did every game, I could side into the slightly better game 1 deck, which is what I did.
You had Huffer and you sided in the Bulkhead, right? That was your plan.
Yeah, because I really like. I'm getting all this tough. What if I get 2 more double blues and get Hands Free Artillery, which is like a good card, but really like.
Artillery is a sweet card.
Yeah.
For sure. No debating that.
Yeah, but man, Huffer was just bad. Like the whole time, like
Yeah.
man, this guy could be someone else.
Yeah.
It's also like kind of going back to the old War of Attrition days of Junkyard, which is like a lot of fun.
I agree.
Moving on from that list, you played Reckled Ice Cream. Okay, before you get into this, what does this name mean? What does this name mean? I don't get it. I don't get.
So it's records.
I know
right?
it's records. Yes.
Right. So it's records, and then there's a slipstream, right? So I just said ice cream instead.
So for people who don't really know, I'm the worst at naming decks. I'm really boring. I'll name a deck like 4 wide this guy, or like whatever. It's like it's super boring. And then a lot of people will name their decks this, and I don't really get it. I don't really understand it, to be fair.
That's fine.
And it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. You know, people can enjoy it, but it's definitely like I'm getting more confused as seasons go on because the naming is starting to get a lot more elaborate, and I'm not really sure like what to do about it anymore.
I will be honest. I think Wrecker's got the most like unique names for like individual decks.
What
What
was the name?
Not the best one by any means.
What was the one Butter
whatsoever,
named? What was Butter's deck for his Magnus Records list? Was it Red Hot Garbage?
It was like Red Hard Garbage. That was hysterical.
Red Hot Garbage. What a name for your deck.
Even to the last event where he like top 8'd it was Red Hard Garbage 3.0, right? He was like version 3 or
Garbage
whatever. Like,
3.0.
Perfect.
Dang. Oh man. What'd you get into this list, Dad?
So this deck was your typical orange black deck. You can see it 31 oranges, 20 blacks. That's actually probably for what it's worth. I think it was wrong. I went orange heavy thinking that there would be more of an orange black metagame. And while that somewhat was true, it was definitely not true in my top 8 match against Kick Me Please, who he slaughtered me in this particular event in top 8.
Yeah.
I just could not damage the Dreadwing well enough. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure he 2-0'd me. Like, I'm fairly confident I got 2-0'd if I remember correctly in the top 8. And that matchup was just like, yep, can't beat that. Like, it was just one of those where I just knew, I'm just like, this is gonna be a really tough matchup, like, unless I, like, draw my, my particular, like, if I drew I think I had, what did I have? I had 1 Calculated Strike.
Only
I
one.
didn't even have one on the sideboard, right?
You don't even have Piercing Blaster.
I didn't have Piercing Blaster. I had 1 in the sideboard, so, like, I definitely was, like I said, I was more on the, okay, there'll probably be more orange-black decks, so I just want to be, like, the slightly bigger orange deck, and then give myself some pierce against the mid-range stuff. I was not expecting this, like, full-blown over-the-top blue deck that's what it was, and it was a really, really tough matchup.
Yeah. One thing I will say, not to detract from this deck at all, but going back to King's deck, I've never seen a deck get second place with 2 sports cards patrols before in any format.
Yeah.
Like, it
was awesome.
It was amazing, and like because the synergy with their tap abilities in Bitter Half, once you combine, I couldn't believe it. Like I didn't even think of that. Oh my god.
I'll be honest, like I don't even know if I've told Kimmy this. Like we tested that card, and like none of us did that.
No
like,
one did
literally.
that.
So like when I saw his list, I was like, that's awesome. That is
awesome.
Like specifically for this event, like that was definitely the standout for this event. Like it was a phenomenal concept that he drew up and made and got to the finals. Like that deck was awesome. Really, really cool deck. I was happy to lose to it, honestly, because it was like, go ahead, dude. Like like my deck is just, I was being different by playing Slipstream. Oh, don't forget my Brawn that was actually a Huffer, if you guys remember. The first couple of rounds, I was away for this tournament. I was away for like 15 days or something like that, and I didn't bring a Huffer with me. So I had to marker on my Brawn Huffer.
That's like in the rules, right? Like that's like an okay proxy, right?
Yeah, I mean, hey, listen, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, man.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
I didn't put any of those games on camera, at least, right? So,
that you got that going for you.
But yeah, I mean, this deck was, obviously I wanted to play Bulkhead. I'm a huge fan of the Bulkhead. Obviously he's had success in like multiple formats now, which is awesome. Slipstream is another like pretty underplayed character. So like I wanted to play some Slipstream as well. I also thought she had some nice game against certain matchups to like kind of remove their hands and like give myself some edge. But honestly, like, I don't think this is like the best version of this deck. I think this deck could definitely get better. And honestly, the character lineup can probably also just be better. So I would not, like, going into like the next Junkyard event, like I wouldn't take this list and be like, oh, I'm just gonna like modify this. Like you can probably do better than this list.
Yeah, for sure. At least knowing what the format would have been now, right?
Yeah.
At least play a
like
little more.
if there was another Junkyard event, I would absolutely not have played this deck.
Yeah, well, it's also nice to just see like Junkyard has changed so much since like pretty much being like an orange black meta game before to now being like really interesting, a little bit really interesting.
I agree.
All right, next list we're going to January into FullCon. We have the first place list, which is this is me today. Remember when I said I really wanted to try really hard to win the Alpha Triumph? Well, I tried my darndest. And it paid off.
You did.
I played the Highbrow Zord, Perceptor Crab, and Gruesome Legion FullCon deck. And let me tell you, this deck, how do I explain it? This deck was probably one of the funnest decks I played in the whole event. I know some people would definitely disagree, because this deck, like, if we talk about Junkyard being really grindy, like FullCon, like the statement of FullCon has always been like, is this like orange black Pierce heavy metagame with Quake, Sky Shadow, or you have Menasor romping around, always beating up on blue decks. This was the first time where like I don't remember playing against an orange deck in FullCon like this whole event. This is incredibly blue heavy, and it was actually, for me, it was actually a lot of fun to play because I felt like I played against a lot of like similar lists, but they were all different in the grand scheme of FullCon as a whole. Like even though like I would say like the metagame was pretty solved by this point, it wasn't like incredibly diverse, but it was so different from FullCon it felt diverse, which was really nice. And let me tell you, Gruesome Legion in FullCon is a house. It's an absolute house. It's hard to go over every card in this list because I played a lot of one-ofs, but
it's a prime Perceptor list.
It's a straight Perceptor list as a Perceptor.
Absolutely approved.
Yeah, I got the approval, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely approved.
What I think is so fun about this list too is like you just with the addition of Highbrow, Perceptor just got so much better, right? Like you didn't see a whole lot of Perceptor beforehand, which is like kind of a crime because I personally love Perceptor. I know you love Perceptor.
I don't know why.
I don't know why either.
It's
yeah.
fine.
Who knew just one extra card on his flip was all it needed? Just one extra card.
I mean, I could think of several things it could have used, but yeah, sure. I would have took a second defensive body mode. That would have been cool.
That would have been pretty good. That would have been pretty good too.
Pretty cool. Yeah, honestly, this list, I had you send me this list, and I think I played it on like a stream, or I was just playing it in some random games. This deck was a lot of fun to play. It was really, really powerful. I was 100% really close to playing this list. I mean, you and I were even talking about the list leading up, and the different one-ups that we were considering in the deck and stuff like that. The deck was absolutely sweet. Obviously, as a Perceptor fan, I was really stoked that Highbrow existed. One of the main reasons for Highbrow's existence was Perceptor, obviously. It was because, Perceptor really did fall off in our meta game, like, a ton. Like, he's just... Yeah. If you really go back and you look before this event of the amount of, like, Perceptor decks that have top 8 it in the last year, it is super low. Very low. I mean, there's, like, the Ghost Starstream deck that Yukari played in one event. I believe he was either top 8 or top 4. He might have succeeded in one of the Wreckers decks in, like, a top 8, but, like, I don't think so. At least I don't remember him being so. So it had been a while that like he had really had the option. Because he just didn't have. The problem with Perceptor is that like at the end of the day, like unless you're Grax, your health pool is really, really low for like a centerpiece character that's flipping. Yeah. And it's you're still at like 10 stars or so. And if you can compare that to like a lot of the other characters at that area and that star cost, then it's really not it's really not up to par in aggressive metagames, I would say. In control metagames, phenomenal. That's exactly why you succeeded with this deck, because at the end of the day, the metagame was extremely, control-y for this particular event in Fulcon, which is 100% the reason why. Like, I agree with you, as going into a new event with new cards, it was excellent to see, that change for full constructed, because for so long full constructed was just like, what is the best orange black pierce deck, realistically? It's like, what is the best version of this? Is it Quake? Is it Stream? Is it Horrible Sky Shadow? Is it Starscream with Fangray Horrible? Like, all of these things, it's like, realistically, they were just like default best decks. So this particular metagame, that's just not true. Like the addition of Sturdy on multiple different characters. I mean, like, your team even has 2 characters with Sturdy at some point in the game. Obviously, there were several Sturdy Boys decks in the top 8 of it, which has 3 Sturdy characters. Even the aggressive Sturdy decks, had 3 Sturdy characters at a given point in the game. So a lot of those decks were a lot harder, a lot difficult to play, for sure. Because even if you just look at the additional health that Sturdy gives you, all those things, So this metagame was just so much different than last that, like, it was refreshing, for sure. But, once you, especially from a designer's point, you look at it in hindsight, and you look at that event, and you're just like, wow, 2 decks were played, So obviously, it's not fair to just go, those are the only 2 decks that you can play, because at the end of the day, it is one event, and on top of that, the things that we made in ATP 5 for Fall Constructed were very inviting, right? Like, Highbrow and Perceptor is incredibly inviting for players. Like, oh my god, like, I want to do that thing. Highbrow and Alpha Trion, incredibly inviting, right? Like, they're just like inviting pairings that you're like, man, I want to do the thing, And especially at this point, because this is the 5th event in the season at this point, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so like, we waited, 4 whole events to be able to do those things. So I don't fault anyone for going, I want to do that thing, because, like, I haven't been able to do that all season, So that's really cool, and I totally get it. But obviously, this event gave us a ton of information, and we did just, we made some hard bans, to try and separate the metagame some more and kind of put it back on an even pairing and get rid of, like, the 3 wide Sturdy decks and stuff like that. At least really damper that playstyle, so it gives more reach to, ironically, those decks that we, like, kind of erased from the metagame in this particular event.
Yeah, absolutely. When the Huffer band is like I think it's just like the funniest band ever in full constructed. It was Huffer. Huffer had to go.
It's really comical. When we were discussing that band, it was just like as soon as I said the word Huffer, I'm like, God, that feels so bad. But it's like, gotta do it. We gotta do it. It's like it's. If we, because at that time, I think we were discussing, like, other heads or stuff like that, and Huffer really wasn't on the table. And I was like, if we ban these certain things, like, the Sturdy deck is just still going to be one of the best decks in the game, because it's like you can still have a 3 wide Sturdy team. Yeah. So it just had to happen. I mean, like, obviously we weren't going to ban Highbrow. We're not going to ban
Alpha Trion
or Alpha Trion, because they're 2 new characters. We believe they create way more options than not, where Highbrow at 5 stars is just so free with Alpha Trion, and company. So it was just, it's funny to think about, because you're like, man, I can't believe this 5-star is the quote problem. But it's just like, no, it's not that's the problem. He's just part of the catalyst, where it's like, getting rid of him isn't hurting the metagame as a whole as much as it is, like, just hampering this particular deck. Or those 2 particular decks, I should say, since there were 2 versions of the Alpha Trion, the aggressive and the control-y. But yeah, I didn't mean to totally derail from your awesome deck list here, but it was more or less about the perception of the event. So
yeah, absolutely.
Sorry there.
No, but that's kind of what I wanted it to be like as well. Because I think there's more to talk about the format than there was actually, like, the deck themselves. Because spoiler, you played Sturdy Boys as well, so we can have like.
So I pretty much covered my deck. I mean, it was, to me, it was actually a really tough decision. As a designer and player for the first time, like, ever, because this is like obviously documented beyond belief. I hate Titans. I hate Titan Masters. I hate body modes. I hate all of it. it's just so oppressive.
Mm-hmm.
So full constructed is generally my least favorite format in the game, period. It's the reason why I'm like the headstrong creator of Titan 1, because like I looked for every imaginable rule and way to make Titan way the way it was, because I couldn't stand double Titan decks.
I think that's
So
fair.
yeah, I was at a real rock and a hard place with this event. You know, I was having a ton of fun playing the deck that you played. Like, it was like, man, this is the thing. But what had happened along the time of going into this event was the decision to play Primus and host an event for Primus 1v1. And I knew from like literal day one that Primus 1v1, I was gonna play Perceptor Hybrid. Like, I knew it. Like, I knew for sure that like I'm gonna play that in Primus, so that's fine. Like, that's what I'm gonna do. So that's why I was like, Alpha Trion, haven't played him all season. We've been trying to build this guy for 2 years at this point.
Yeah, back in ATP 2, man.
I gotta play Alpha Trion.
Man, I remember back in ATP 2, that guy was just like busted as can be, and just every turn he was, it was a ridiculous.
Absolute house.
Uh-huh.
All those versions, even the version that got printed. I mean, obviously he's, you know, a very healthy 11-star character without a head on him. So you know he's worth everything you pay for him, of course. But I just opted that I was like, all right, I'm gonna play Alpha Trion. I'm gonna play the Sturdy Boys deck. It's a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun playing it. It's definitely a sweet deck. I think like, yeah, you lose Huffer in general in the metagame, but like you could still just play Night Racer. You know, obviously you can't have it all, right? Like that was kind of the point with that deck in particular, and even this deck in particular as well. It's like you kind of just had it all, where like you just can't have it all anymore. So it definitely just evens the playing field, I think, along with deck building.
Yeah, you know, and kind of going between the two lists and like the bans, right? Like both decks are still very much playable post bans, but they look a little bit different, right? Like the heads here, like both heads, Zord and Crab, are banned, so now you have to figure out like what heads am I gonna put on here, because you probably play Parsec on the highbrow, but you know you're gonna see a lot of Parsec with that highbrow, man. It's Parsec's time to shine, and like you can play Vorath, that's his name. You can play Vorath on Perceptor, which is like,
it's a big oof.
It's a big oof, but you know what? The cushion of that is, if you have to play Vorath, that means other people have to play Vorath. So it's like not as big of an oof as it could be, but it's still a big oof. 2 1-star heads when they deploy, man.
It's definitely true that like, yes, your opponents can play it, but what I do believe is that like, if you want to play this deck now, it's like you've lost 3 effective health on your team, which is a big deal. You know, it's a big deal. So it seems marginal, right? Like, it seems marginal. Huge deal. Not to mention the heads that you're getting to replace those characters are way worse when they're on the table.
Like, frankly, those heads are doo-doo. They're straight doo-doo. But you play them just so you can play the body mode characters.
Right.
You're gonna see so many highbrows die at 12 versus 13. Like, the number is so significant. You have no idea.
I mean, you know this, right? Like, you've tested, you've played just as many games as I have, right? Like, that health point that highbrow gives you, that's by design, guys. I promise you that health pool with Sturdy is absolutely by design. If you go back and you watch any video with highbrow on that screen, I'm telling you, you'll notice how many times that thing has 12 health. It's remarkable.
You'll notice. Absolutely.
Huge deal.
Yeah, and you know, and same with the Sturdy Boys. You know, you gotta play Parsec with highbrow as well there. But you have the freedom to pick a little bit of a different 5-drop now. You play the Night Racer. You can play Brawn. I think Brawn actually might not be too bad either, because you get the focus from Alpha Trion.
If you're still gonna stay on the Autobots, I think Brawn's not a bad citizen. You know, I don't think there's anything else currently. You know, maybe ATP 6 is giving you a new 5-drop of that's an option, but yeah, right now, for me, what's important is that you can't have you can only have double Sturdy with Alpha Trion in either format now. Because in Titan 1 you can play Alpha Trion and you can get Huffer back, but you don't have the highbrow anymore. So I think it's a big deal to have it set up that way for at least a good point period in time.
Absolutely. Moving on from Full-Con, we got three more lists to go to. We got Primus 1v1, won by this guy named Dan Arnold, playing Perceptor. Playing Perceptor, highbrow, Zords. It's like we just talked about this, guys. Oh, and Kreb too.
Remember how I tell you guys I was set, like dead set on playing that deck? Man, was this deck awesome.
It was awesome for the people playing it, not for the people
Yes.
playing against it. Let me tell you that right now. Oof, this deck was tough to play against.
Fort Max, I'm sorry, alright?
Listen, I don't even think it was because. I mean, yes, I played Fort Max, which is like the biggest oof into will to fight possible. But I don't know. The deck is just like so good into everything it does. You know, I had to fix this screenshot in OBS because all the one-ofs for the Primus 1v1 list look so weird on my OBS right now. Like you gotta get your like reading glasses a little bit to see this whole list probably on the screen right now.
I mean, this is the greatest Perceptor list. Look at all those one-offs.
Yeah, and the best part was like your 3 of action isn't even a 3 of, it's a 2 of. It's the 2 nothing to lose, which I find so hilarious.
Yeah, and that's actually funny because the reason that happened was Wyatt, actually. So Wyatt, you know, he was playing Rung like all throughout testing for World War Primus. The card was phenomenal, and I was dead set on letting him play Rung and be like, all right, cool, people will get to showcase Rung and see what Rung does. And that's great. And then Wyatt, like, literally, like, a day or 2 before was like, I can't play in the event. I was like, crap. So I just said, oh, screw it. I'm not going to play, like, whatever I was going to play before this. I can't even remember what I was going to play before this. I actually forget. But I was just like, all right, I'll just play Rung. So when I made the list, I counted everything up, and I'm like, oh, I'm good. I figured it all out. And then I was like, oh, I think I was just going to play Bulkhead. That's what it was. I was going to play Bulkhead.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like when I figured it all out, I'm like, all right, cool, I got this, we're good. I got my star cards, I'm great. And then it was like, oh, I have to play Rung. I'm like, oh, okay. So then when I did it all and I did all the math, I was like, uh-oh. It's like, I can't play 3 of my signature. But that card is so good that it was worth playing 2 of, so I just stuck with it.
I find it funny that you didn't even play the 3 showing up as a Perceptor list. You opted for this, which, I mean, the card is like really, really good, like you said, even purposely.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, showing off is obviously great, but the truth is that the nothing to lose is good at, like, with all, like, basically any of your characters.
Fair.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
Well, it's good with either Zort or, with Highbrow or Perceptor. I think I did end up winning one of my games by nothing to losing my Highbrow for like a big swing at the end of the game.
Nice.
But yeah, I thought nothing to lose would be really cool. It was also, so there was a lot of exploratory things going on in this format. Obviously, you know, we did have a pretty good ban list, but it wasn't as good as it could have been, which we know like now. Obviously, Will to Fight definitely is not legal. We haven't made an official announcement about this or like an official list. It will be made shortly as we're getting ready to kick off Season 6 and all those things. But like Will to Fight is absolutely banned in Primus 1v1, so like if you're still playing Primus 1v1 like on the side, don't play that card. It's mean, it's cruel, it's really, really NPE.
You will lose friends.
We should have absolutely picked it up before the event. I'm not the only person. I was the second person player in this event. Also had Will to Fight. I think in the top 4 deck might have also had Will to Fight.
There was a couple Will to Fight decks in top 8 because Frank played it. Who else played it?
I played it. Frank played it, and no one else did. I'm pretty sure someone else had it though.
Yeah, I remember at least 3, or at least it just felt like everyone had it for whatever reason.
Well, you did play against Frank like round 1, right? Like, is that what just happened?
Yeah, with Fort Max, it was like, man, this is like the worst possible thing I could see.
I guess since I was streaming it, like you might have just saw a lot of it just because of that, because
that might be it. That might be it.
Was just there. But yeah, I mean, this deck was awesome. A lot of fun. Primus 1v1 is a ton of fun. You know, hopefully, you know, we did have a lot of discussion after this event. So back to my point about nothing to lose was, you know, star cards as signatures was another one of those topics of discussions of like, do we want star cards to be legal as signatures? Because obviously we banned Never Give Up, but we banned Never Give Up realistically because we didn't want that to be a signature in anyone's deck, because that card is definitely not fun in Primus. But if we did opt to go, okay, no star cards could be signatures, then you would probably see Never Give Up come back into the fold as a playable option, because all these other decks would lose those things. So I specifically wanted to play Nothing to Lose as my signature because I wanted to just like get a little bit more feedback, a little more testing on that end of like how we feel about that. We definitely haven't decided on it yet. Sorry for anyone who was looking for an answer, but that's another reason why I did specific things for this deck list.
Yeah, for sure. I think like I know like we have a couple questions. We won't probably get into all the questions that people asked at the end here, but we'll definitely get into as many as we can. I know Wyatt asked one of the questions about like our thoughts and feelings about like Primus 1v1 and like if it has the potential to be like a month-long event too. You kind of gave some thoughts there. I'm definitely a lot more on the fence about Primus 1v1 as a month-long format. I think it's totally fine as a one-day event. I think I think the nature of like the creative freedom, right? Like I'm a big, I coming from like a Yu-Gi-Oh background, kind of like we were like ban lists were always like a huge deal. Like seeing the Yu-Gi-Oh ban list, it's absolutely massive, and I think like that type of restriction breeds a lot of creativity, and I think the adding more here to like the star cost here in Primus, especially in like competitive like 1v1 format, I think almost kind of detracts from creativity a little bit, because I think it's at least for me personally, like when I go to play a thing of Primus 1v1, because like I think we've had talk about this in like the Discord and articles about like just play a full con deck and add 10 stars, right? Like that's something you could totally do and it's like totally fine, but I think like even going beyond from that, I think like the very nature of like I think it's of like the Primus 1v1, like it has so much, you have a lot of freedom to it, and that freedom is like almost like a little irritating to a certain extent, because like even like the 1v like I'm actually like in the 1v1 format, I'm not a huge fan of the singletons of it, because going back to Yu-Gi-Oh again, we had a lot of cards that you could only play at one, and it was always absurdly frustrating when they got to play their one power card that they drew of, right?
Right.
Yeah, being able to play the one of, oh, he top decked his one marksmanship that he had in his 50 some card deck, or shoot, it's like not even the signature, right? Like that's like, and to me, like I don't know, that just gets frustrating, like, and that's just like my own personal thing, but like I think as a one-day format, it definitely like is interesting, but that's mostly just to answer Wyatt's question here and now, right?
Just to follow up a little bit, I think at this current point in time, I would not expect Primus 1v1 to be a month-long event. I just wouldn't. I think I think it's cool as a one-day thing. I think we definitely need to put more effort and work into it. But of like, the formats we've like pitched recently and we're trying out and things like that, like this format is definitely the least explored one. And that's rough. Like as a designer, as a T, like even as like, a TO, it's like, I want people to have fun. I want people to like explore things and try different things, but I also wanted to make sure it's balanced. And this is the hardest format to balance because like of all the things that you just said. Yeah. The star cost is erratic. It's you have a lot of different options. There are so many different ways and avenues to build for it, whether it's correct, incorrect, or whatsoever you. And then like there's always gonna be the ultimate like. There's a chance that like whatever you build just has no chance against some other thing that someone else built, and like that doesn't really feel like that by nature in the game. Mostly in most games, in most matches, like you feel like you always have like a chance within reason to play. But this is like a double down on that. It's like sometimes your characters are not going to match their characters, and sometimes your battle deck is just not going to match their draw of their battle deck, and things like that. So there's a lot of nature that like definitely could leave for feels bads. And not to mention like to play a best of one in a month long also might not feel too good, right? Because like we're looking at that because this could never be a best of three. No. Like, the games would just take forever, right? So long. So like having a best of one in a month long event where like we're only playing like one match every 2 to 3 days and stuff like that, like it'd feel really bad like if you got to your round and you got your opponent sat down and like you guys were ready to go and all of a sudden like maybe that for whatever reason that game ended in 20 minutes and like that's it, like I don't think that's great for the game in a month long aspect. So that's why like I never expect to play this in a month long without some like serious tuning. So I would not expect this as a month-long event in Season 6. But as a one-day, I think I already announced it, the April one-day will be a Primus 1v1 with the updated ban and restricted list. So anyone that's looking forward to it, that had fun with it, it's definitely not going away. I think it's a nice one-day format, especially if we're gonna get away from like certain things in the season in general, just to be more and especially more charitable. Like almost all the one-day events are built for charity for the most part. So like I want to lean towards those things. So yeah, that's what I would look forward to. I don't think it'll be a month-long event.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good answer to the question. I think that's a good spot to move on to the last event, which rounded up a few days ago now. And that was the February another Titan 1. So Titan 1 was a big deal in season 5, like you said. And this is one, and we've seen this list before again. This is one by the Pocket Full of Sunshine, Wyatt at his finest, double tens, double deal highbrow, mid-range list from before. I'm not sure if we need to speak too much more on this list. The list is just really, obviously, it's still solid. It showed itself to be incredibly solid. You streamed you and Ziggy. Ziggy's the one who won this, by the way. So congrats to Ziggy on the win here. I think, I think everything that we talked about in the list at the beginning of the format is still shown here. Except, there's no conversion engine, but the deck clearly didn't need it to still be successful.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the effective, I think he played the exact same number, or he played one less card in the main deck, and he played he definitely played a different sideboard.
Yeah.
Same character but different sideboard as in terms of battle cards. I think it's not much different. It's not much different at all. It's like 4, maybe 5 cards. It's really realistically just taking out the ban cards, replacing them with generically good cards.
Mm-hmm.
But what I do want to speak specifically about this deck in general is it's the only deck in the Titan 1 format that won multiple events in the season.
Yep.
That's obviously something that has to be talked about.
Absolutely.
When you go into terms of looking at what the best deck in the particular metagame was, it would be really difficult to argue that it wasn't this deck.
I agree.
And there's several reasons, and they're actually kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
So through 2 events, this deck only had 1 loss. It only had 1 match loss.
Wow.
And ironically, that match loss was Wyatt playing that deck in the event that he won, and he lost to Ziggy.
Playing Dynabot.
So,
yeah.
The 2 players that won with this deck, of those 2 players, the only person to beat it was one of the players that won with it. So this deck was probably, without a shadow of a doubt, the best deck in the metagame for Season 5.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I got to give credit to my boy Dirty too. Early in the season, he did play this exact same lineup as well. He played a little bit different. He played really heavy until the reveal, so a lot of Will of the Protocols. He played some shoulder holster, which I played him in the one-day event, and he got me with a double grenade launcher shoulder holster. I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, calm down, dude.
Christmas Land is sweet when
dude,
you get there.
it was it was incredible. I'm like, I lost this game. I can't beat 2 grenade launchers at once. You know what I mean? But yeah.
I mean, unless you have stab arms down, yeah.
I was playing orange. The guy had no stab arms. I tell you that much right now. Yeah, I think something interesting to talk about too with this list is that I think this list will still be pretty good at the HB6. It's gonna look really different though. It's gonna look and feel pretty different.
Knack does a ton for this deck list, for sure. It just does. The ability to be 5 colors, to have so many, of the tricolor or the dual pick colors, it's a huge deal. Knack just really enabled this deck to be either honestly, even if you go to the finals of this event, he didn't necessarily have aggressive games, which this deck is totally capable of. He just won games because he's just I have a force field, I have an opportunism, I just had my secret action when I needed it. The deck really does just hit on so many different things, but Knack does a lot of that heavy lifting to basically facilitate you all the time, because at the end of the day, it's a green pip card that hits multiple different characters in this lineup.
Yep.
So not being able to rely on that will definitely decrease the consistency of the deck, which is the biggest truth.
The toolbox
is so down. The deck is still very good. The characters are still very good. Mm-hmm. The whole core concept of what the deck is good and bad at is still all there. It's just the consistency factor of what Knack brings. Big deal. Big deal.
Yeah.
I believe there is Ziggy. He had just we didn't really bring up, but the other thing that I did during the season was everyone had a champion tile on the website. So, and I believe in Ziggy's champion tile, one of the questions I asked him was with the updated ban list, what would you replace your cards with? and I think he does a really good job of the suggestions that he would make. So I would go check that out if you haven't looked at it, because I don't really promote those things. They're kind of just like little banners on the website in the Season 5 tab. To where all of the winners from every event just got like a little, just kind of the same thing, that playmat that they won, like, well, here's a little tile to remember, hey, in Season 5, you got to win, congratulations type stuff,
Yeah, exactly. Good remembrance. Very good remembrance. Yeah. The toolbox in this is still going to be there, but it's definitely going to look smaller, like you said. Like, you can't knack, get a blue-black and get one of your secret actions, and then swing double dealer, KO something, bounty, and get your other good secret action. It's like,
absolutely.
Where's my hunt down when I needed that thing? Jeez, yeah.
It's gonna be way more hand dependent. It's just gonna be like, I can't, like, you won't even have the option to think about doing that play.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, honestly, to take away. Is like, it was so easy to just go, oh, I'll just pitch this like mediocre situational card for Knack, because Knack is generally gonna give me my best option so often, because the way the deck is designed and built, it was designed and built to be that way, to where, like, if Knack hits a certain pip color, you have different targets for whatever pip color that is to be what you need it to be. Whether it be a blue-black secret action or an opportune offensive, like, those cards, they're the same pip color, so it's like, well, if I hit a black, I get to choose what I want to do, and that's a huge deal for that deck's going to lose out.
Yeah, exactly. You can't pull downfall protocol from the Knack anymore. You can still get some double, but yeah, absolutely. All right, and then moving on from that, we have the last list here, the one that you played and got second with. Destiny comes in many forms. I get this name, and I like this name, by the way. This is a good name.
Yeah, this is I guess you could attribute this, but the comical thing here is where it all circles back to is I believe in Destiny, or I don't believe in Destiny, which is the Jetfire quote, and it's also the name of the stratagem from ATP 1. And both decks had the same outcome. They lost in the finals, Christian. Both decks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a tribute to that. I think, ironically, through the years, and this goes back to even Wave 4, Jetfire just been probably one of my more favorite characters in the game. And I've been accustomed to playing every version of him at this point, I would say.
Yeah.
And I think he's a lot of fun. I think all of his versions of him they're in ways they're all the same, but enough uniquely different.
Yeah.
I think for us, I think we've done a really good job of living on the Jetfire name with Decepticon Jetfire, because he does a little bit of both of what the other Jetfire does, which is really cool and unique.
Yeah, they all feel like Jetfire, which is like the best part, right?
Yeah, which is, like I said, it's really cool for me, because like I think over the course of the game, it's definitely the character Jetfire has been a character that I've really fallen in love with. I'm pretty sure I'm on record saying, like, the Siege toy that the top 8 competitors got at Energon Invitational, like, if I knew in the moment that, like, anybody was interested in the Omega Supreme that I got, I would have traded them.
Oh, really?
Because I wish I had the Jetfire toy, because like the Jetfire was like, that was such a cool toy that I'm like, man, like, I'm not a big toy collector or anything like that. Like, I never had any plans to keep the Omega Supreme, but like, had I got that Jetfire, I never would have got rid of that. That thing would have been awesome. I kept the Omega Supreme obviously too, but yeah, Jetfire's just a really cool character, and this deck was, it is very different than the list that Palmer played, because I'm not Mr. 3 of. I will probably never be Mr. 3 of.
You're the opposite of Mr. 3 of.
I mean, I designed Perceptor, guys. Like, let's be real. I like my one-offs. I like my choices. The biggest core difference from, obviously, my deck and Palmer's deck is the addition of Knack. It's the same exact lineup. All these characters can pick up Knack, except for Jetfire in Decepticon mode. This deck is it's another really, really good Knack deck. It's definitely not required by any means, but it was one of those where I was like putting my deck together. I'm like, I'm gonna play Knack, because, like, why wouldn't you?
You have 3 characters that can pick it up pretty much, so there's no reason not to, right?
Right. So, and this deck's definitely not, like, it's not the best Knack deck ever. It really isn't. I think this deck will be 100% playable without it. The end hostility is the same thing. End hostilities was a key factor of, like, if I go back and I remember this tournament the way I do remember it, on every game that I lost, it lost because I just got blown out by belligerents, which is why I main deck 2 end hostilities.
Makes sense.
Because it's like, you just, like, that card just crushes you. It absolutely crushes this deck.
Yeah.
As you said before, like, the Jetfire has 6 attack. Like so, like you're clearly playing a long, grindy game with this deck of just trying your best to set up characters. What I do want to, like, we didn't talk about this earlier. What this deck specifically does, and what Decepticon Jetfire does, is that he actually, ironically, is really good into other non-sturdy legends. There are several times throughout the event that I was able to like KO a legend and then swing with Jetfire into the legend and KO it, so they don't like they lose out on the run tap and stuff like that. It happened a bunch. He's very like, the amount of direct damage that comes from this deck and from Jetfire is really big, and I think it's something that maybe players didn't really see, that little itty bitty damage like throughout the game, and then obviously because he's a ranged character, etc. Like the ways that you can play to that. It's actually like a really interesting play style against legend character decks.
It is, and I kind of going back to what we said about like Double Dealer, the Double Dealer deck being the only one that's won 2 events in the season. This is another deck that's only gotten the other deck that's only gotten the finals twice. So you gotta give the deck a ton of credit.
Two players in the entire season. One won an event. One the 1-day event. The other one was in the finals of the monthly event. Both of these decks were probably underplayed in a competitive standpoint in the entire season, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fun part is that there's so many different ways you can build this, right? Like you can lean, like both versions really lean into the Autobot version. You can really lean into Seekers. You can play 2 Seeker characters with this. You can really lean into aerial superiority. There's tons of different ways.
Yeah, like I played one on my board just in case there was like 4 wide shenanigans going on. I wanted to have that. Like you can see, like my board was very particular. It was like, all right, I'm gonna have a harm cover crit. I'm gonna have an aerial superiority, like things like that. I obviously was like, I basically accepted that I was gonna lose to Pierce in game 1 and just boarded 3 stable covers. Like I was just like, whatever. I'll try and win with my downfall protocols, my stab arms, basically in game 1, and then game 2 I'll just board out end hostilities and despite any difficulties and just bring in my stable covers and stuff like that. That was definitely my plan, at least. But there was only, in this particular event, there was only 2 Pierce decks. Realistic, there wasn't really any Pierce decks in the events, and I think it was just Ansel and King Me Please that registered them. Yeah. So like,
not to make top 8 either.
Play against that, thankfully. Unlike Palmer, who played Jetfire again in this event, and he ended up, I think he played King Me in round 1, and King Me just smashed it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm like, this deck loses to Pierce for sure. There's no doubt about it.
Everything's gotta have a loss, right? Everything's gotta have a loss.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the best way to design, right? Gotta make sure something.
All right. Fix that. Going into kind of just like, well, we got a couple things. We got season overall thoughts on season 5 format, metagame, and what things to look forward to in ATP 6 season 6, and a couple viewer questions. I think we can get a couple viewer questions for sure.
Okay. So my general thoughts on it, on the season at large, are mostly good. Once again, you go and look at the Titan one. Other than the 1-day events, and even in the 1-day events, there's like 8 different decks in every Titan 1 event. And even in the events that have 2 of the same character lineups, the battle decks are vastly different. In those, like, and I'm talking like, anywhere between 10 to 15 cards different, so it's realistically like almost a different deck at that point. When you go to that many numbers, like if we're talking like 4 or less, like it's 10%, but it's still okay. It's like I chose a battle card versus this battle card, but when you're talking like that many cards, it's basically it's almost a different deck at that point. So very happy with the season of Titan 1. So many different decks succeeded. And the amount of top 8s is remarkable. Just really proud of where the Titan 1 format was. For the full con, we discussed that honestly at length. But I was happy that it felt like for the first time we really did change or flip the script in full con. But I'll be the first one to tell you that we probably, we obviously might have gone too far, but it's really hard. What people need to understand about the different formats and us trying to balance them is that to me, it feels like full con is not necessarily like a favorite format for everybody. So which is the reason why we kind of like did go down to like one event for a month long. But when you do that, well, I'll use this actually as a double example. Is when you do that, you know, we only get so much information about it, you know. And since we only get so much information, it's hard to make corrections, you know, beforehand because we just don't have a lot of information. So that's the real big deal. Where like we think we're at a certain point and it looks good and that's great, but you know, we can obviously miss things. So I feel like it's difficult to say that if we did another full constructed event, would it look exactly the same? The answer is probably no. I do think at the end of the day, like I said, everything about that event was inviting. You know, Highbrow's inviting, Avatrine's inviting, Perceptor with Highbrow inviting. You know, all those things are very, very like, oh, duh, I want to try this. So that's all really cool. But at the end of the day, like the ban list, I'm very excited to see the ban list and what it does. Even in this March event, which is out of season, we're a little low on participants right now, as opposed to like all the monthly events this year. This season had at least 16 or more players. So we'll see if that happens in the out of season event. It's our first time ever having an out of season event. It was really just meant for like a chill month. Hey, here's the new ATP 6 stuff, so you guys can get excited about that. You don't have to like super worry about like some new event and everything. So I'm expecting a lower turnout. I'm expecting people to take some time off and things like that. But
as they probably should.
At the end of the day, FullCon is what it is. You know, hopefully the corrections will be good. This month is going to be another FullCon, so even if it is, you know, a low turnout, it's still more data points for us to go into Season 6 with, because that's really the main point of this was like, all right, we feel comfortable about what we did, but let's see what it looks like, and then we'll take that information and we'll adjust for Season 6. Junkyard, I was really, really happy with Junkyard as a whole. The Sea Spray ban was huge. I think that was a really big deal.
Huge.
Fight Position was another one. Like, I know Fight Position was banned before that, but it was like the first time in like a while that we had seen it. But yeah, I was really happy with Junkyard format. I thought it was really cool. The only thing that I didn't like about it was that it felt like it's hard to say where this is coming from, but it to me it feels like it's a format that like people played in it because it was the month-long event, but weren't really like excited to explore the format. So that also makes it really difficult when we're building for formats, because like if a bunch of people just play the same thing, kind of like with Titan One, or I'm sorry, with FullCon, it's hard to get the proper information of like, okay, like, was this the best thing or was it just the easiest thing? You know, is there answers to this? You know, like there's a lot of like that questions that go on like that. So I was just a little upset with Junkyard because, like I said, there was like, I think it was like 16 players, but I think like 6 people played the lockdown, and I thought there was a lot of other things that were offered. Like, I wasn't shocked that like people played lockdown, because I think that he's an exciting character and he's really fun for the format. I was just a little upset that there wasn't more explored in the format, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
But yeah, and then obviously the Primus thing was great. It was fun to do, and it was fun to get the format out there. And I think it proved that like for a one-day event, I think it's a pretty fine format. It only gets like, obviously that format changes just as much as all these formats. With every new set, it gets the most out of everything, you know. So we'll see. You know, we'll see what happens there moving into the next season.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my thoughts are, as a player, were pretty on par with pretty much all that. I think, I think another thing to just kind of take note of, and I think it's something we've always seen from the game ever since Wave 1. I think it's something we'll always see. You know, as a playtester, it's you know, coming from HB4 was a very aggressive metagame. There was tons of orange decks, you know. They all looked, you know, there was tons of different orange decks that did different things. Not a whole lot of blue decks. This time we're seeing a lot more blue decks take the spotlight. I don't think, and mid-range specifically, a lot of mix and blue decks. I don't think there was an orange deck in that won any of the events. But there was also, but it'd be wrong to say that there wasn't a lot of people playing orange decks. Like, I thought there was still like I was pretty impressed by this season's, like, especially for Titan 1, I was pretty impressed to see how many people like explored mixed decks and explored different blue decks, but also still played orange decks and still saw success with them in different flavors, you know. Because I think
I mean, even in the last event of the season, you had 2 orange decks in top 4, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think like 2 in top 8 before that too, you know. Like I think
there's several for
yeah,
sure.
there was a lot of orange decks. There was a lot of orange decks this event.
There's
this
5.
last
There's
event.
actually, so of the top 8 in the last Titan 1 event, there was 5 decks with 30 or more orange icons.
Absolutely,
So-
and to kind of go about what I was gonna go out with this was that the best part about I think this season was for Titan 1 was like, even though blue still like kind of came out on top a little bit more, I would say in terms of consistency and tournament wins, there were still like lots of viable options for other colors, for other decks, right? And I think that's really hard to do in this game, you know, because because it's not just like buffing in like one archetype, right? When you make an orange card, you're buffing every orange deck. When you make a blue card, you're buffing every blue deck, right? Every format tends to swing one color better than the other in some way. So, you know, between 8v3 and 4, there was a lot more mono color.
Yeah.
This one felt a lot more diverse, and I think that was pretty excellent in my opinion.
Yeah, it's one of those where, like, you know, to me it's always about the rules of the format, and I think that's why Titan 1 succeeds so well, is that the rules are just good.
Yeah.
Like the restrictions of the format, the ban list of the format allows for you to really kind of do what you want, you know, within reason. Obviously, like, there's some characters that are just better than other characters. You can't just go out and play, you know, the 3 worst characters that you can pick, obviously. But if you want to pick any of the competitive characters, like, you know, chances are you have a good chance at making top 8s. Like I say this all the time. You know, there's a winner's deck. Like, I'm gonna play this deck because I think that it can win me an event, and then there's like a top 8 deck. And I think Titan 1 has the most top 8 decks that you can imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, you credit yourself here. Like, you won an event with such heroic nonsense, you know, in a Titan 1. Now, obviously not in this season, but in
back
past
then.
seasons. Same thing. Like, Aerial Bots has won multiple events where, you know, in formats that people write it off quite often. Like, it's possible to win with decks that seem like not the best. Now, this format, I think this particular season, the best decks mostly won. Mostly won their events. You know, I do feel that way.
Yeah.
But the concept of is like they're all these matches are close. You know, they're within reason. You know, and it's like, even if like let's just compare like our top 8s, right? Like in this particular event where, like, you know, you played against Ogar playing the rally deck, and you had an incredibly unfavorable matchup.
It was bad. It was bad.
It was really unfavorable. And honestly, like, when I had won and beat Smurf, going into my matchup with Ogre, I didn't really know what to expect, to be honest. I was like, I didn't know how my matchup was going to be. I know that Rally is really good.
Rally's good
across the board. But like, when I 2-0'd him, I was like, oh, okay, like, but like, that's the difference there. It's like, you know, that's 3 decks in the metagame where it's like, I don't know, where it's like his deck dominated yours, my deck looked as if it dominated his. I don't think it necessarily did dominate his, but, you know, it looked that way at the end of the result of a 2-0. But like, those games were all, you know, realistically they were within reason for the most part. And that's really all you can ask for, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we should jump into try to answer a couple of viewer questions here. We answered a couple. Richard, you know, shout out to Richard, who always, you know, he's good at pop quizzes. He's good at pop quizzes.
He just likes to pick on me. That's all.
Absolutely. So, I can probably run down his questions. We answered quite a few of his questions already, like, in the discussion.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so like one of the ones that I'm gonna kind of just skip over was, in our opinion, what were the 3 best decks in each format? Probably don't have to go into like each form. We kind of already did that, but like maybe for Titan 1, I think I would say like the Double Dealer, High Roll list, the Jetfire list, and I would say it's tied between the Snapdragon Ghost Starscream list and
the Rodimus list.
and the Rodimus list. Yeah, thank you. I think it's like like those four in some way are like really good. Like the Rodimus list, like I think that Rodimus list also has seen quite a bit of play in ATP5. That deck is still like insane. That lineup is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I mean it was in one of the finals. It was in multiple top 8s.
Yep.
Yeah, that deck's phenomenal. Honestly, the only thing that I would add that like as like a 3-way tie. It's crazy. Is Dinobots.
Dinobots. Yeah.
Completely underrated deck, I think. Realistic, like your hard loss to Snapdragon, right? Like it's a hard loss, for sure. But that deck is really good. Never Give Up is a hell of a card, guys.
That was like the most knackable deck ever.
In this particular metagame, where you had knack, you had 3 specialists on your team, like you had a lot of reasons to play Dinobots in this format, so like, that was another one that if I really had to say like top 5 decks, like that would probably be my top 5 for sure.
Yeah, I'd agree. Man, Dinobots was silver spoon fed this metagame. My goodness.
And for good reason, right? Like
yeah,
Dinobots
absolutely.
It's absolutely a legend killer deck.
100%.
Yeah. Like that deck is 100% a legend killing deck. So like as long as there are legends in the metagame, Dinobots will always be an option.
Absolutely. What do we think about the Belligerents and End Hostilities banned? What did the Belligerents and End Hostilities banned mean for the T1 format going forward? If you don't mind, I think my favorite part about these bans for the T1 format is I think it creates a lot more interesting deck construction and plays and choice for player when trying to make mixed decks. Because most mixed decks that we have seen are just like the best Belligerents and Hostilities decks out there, and that's really like their biggest push and play. But now that they don't have that, they have to use different tools, right? And you know,
right.
And I think that's my most excited thing to see with that ban in T1. You know, at least for me personally.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have been playing this way since like I don't know,
month or two, 3 months.
Like late January, right? Like in testing, like you know, we made this call. I think it was like the 3rd or 4th week of January where I was just like, hey, listen, guys, you know, we're gonna actually try this. We're gonna see what this looks like, and we're gonna remove these cards from our testing cycle for Titan 1. And it didn't take long. Like honestly, like I was just watching the games, and what I enjoy the most about it is Belligerents is a blessing and a curse, no matter which way we look at it. And NSL is the exact same way. They're just game-ending cards, which is great, right? Like game-ending cards are awesome. Yep. But what it does is that it removes a lot of strategy from the game. Like it really does. It's just like for an example, I'll just go back to the finals again. Like I had known that in the finals, had Ziggy played a Belligerents, and I did not have a secret action down, or I did not have the correct secret action down, I was probably going to lose the game. That's honestly how I felt about it. My deck was not good against Belligerents, and his deck was a great way to play Belligerents, find Belligerents, and I was just like, if he gets it, I'm going to lose the game, right? If you take the Belligerents out of the equation, I probably play a lot of I probably played a lot of my games different through the entire event. Because like I'm not immediately scared of the game ending, and I'm talking like on any given turn, right? On any given turn, Belligerents without a secret action down against my deck is just like absolutely it's
just runs right through you, man. Yeah.
So the idea that you will now have to build your deck without the literally just the auto win card is huge. And I think that's a really good thing. I think it's gonna give that creativity, and you know. Spoiler to the spoilers, but like there is definitely tools in ATP6 that like you're gonna be like you're not if you feel bad about it right now, you're like, oh, what am I gonna replace Belligerents with? Like there are tools coming that like you're gonna have options to replace your Belligerents with. Like there's definitely some nice aggressive additions in ATP6.
Absolutely, and you know, and as like an End Hostilities replacement, let me tell you, like Hidden Fort, man, like in testing, Hidden Forts look so good again. Like I haven't played this card since Wave 4, like 2 years ago, and I'm so excited about it, you know, and like that's like
it's crazy because like Hidden Fort obviously was never really that bad, right?
No.
Hidden Fort is still a phenomenal secret action against everything in the game that's not Belligerents
or a Pierce deck,
you know, Fusion Board, etc. Like it's still bad against those things, but the card is still very good. So when you remove belligerence from the equation, you go, oh, I can actually do this again. Like I can play Hidden Fort, I can play
Supercharge.
Sparring Gear, right? Like I can play like, you know, these other cards that like just felt so like there's so many cards that belligerence held back.
Yeah,
So
and
many, you
and
know,
hand stillages though, right? Like those two cards, they kind of like negated like cards that want you to flip cards from your deck, which is
right,
kind of
and
funny to
people
see,
love
right?
flipping cards. Like,
I love flipping cards. That's what the
you
game's
know,
about,
like-
right? Like, will we see like Supercharge and Power Punch back for orange decks? Just because
Yeah.
you know they now you're not afraid of just like Power Punch, Supercharge, Bold 9. So
Right, and like the coolest thing about it is it's so like, people are gonna go like, oh, we're just gonna go back to tough blue decks, so now I can just build my Pierce decks. That's great, you can totally
Yeah.
do that. But like those Pierce decks, they're gonna lose to the orange decks, which means there's a rock paper scissors, guys. Like
There it is.
we're still in that format of like, well, you can choose what you're gonna lose to, right? And that's important. I think that's a big deal. And I think it'll be really fun and exciting to see Titan 1 develop over the next couple of months.
yeah, I agree.
Not to mention new card pool. You know, but it's it's a nice new card pool in addition to this ban list.
Absolutely, I agree. I want to jump to a Jason question here. Jason has a couple questions. Some of them are probably easier to answer on the Discord than on a video, just because they're kind of like they're more like statements on things that would be interesting to see. So like having more polls like in the community, like proactive like feedback of like favorite formats, favorite battle cards, things like that. He talked about this is actually kind of an interesting question because this applies to both of us. What was a hardship or hurdle the design team and playtesters faced recently for ATP6? I think it's kind of an interesting question, and I think I have a feeling of what you're gonna say.
So yeah, do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
You go first on this one, I think.
So, as Wyatt calls this, the way our set designs are, this was an exploratory set. So we were exploring two new mechanics in the set, but we've already announced the Energize emission statement, emission stratagems. What I will say about that is that one of these mechanics felt correct and fluent all the way through testing.
Yeah.
Just felt good, felt like the game needed it, felt like the game was going to enjoy having it. It was creating a new an archetype in the game. So it was just doing a lot of really great things in testing, and it was really more just about like balancing to be sure of like where cards needed to be and like what the level restrictions were going to be and stuff like that. Whereas the other one felt the opposite. It just is very difficult. Like it was, we were trying to create this new mechanic. We were trying to give reason for people to play this new interesting type of deck and things like that. And it was like, it was really difficult balancing them and, you know, being comfortable with what they can do and who they could be played with and what they can be played with. So like from that aspect as a designer, you know, like I will say this, I generally will watch more games than I play because I think it's important for me to be able to gauge all the information from both players or from different players other than myself. I will necessarily not only get into playtesting when it's like absolute nitty gritty, like I'm trying to prove a point type scenario. But you know, that was really the truth. Like, you know, one keyword and one mechanic was like, yep, this is great. This feels great. This is going to be really comfortable. The other one, like, I had a lot of hurdle. It was a lot of discussion points of what should they do, how much of effort do we put into the set to do this? You know, what type of support does it get? Like, so that would definitely be it. Of those two new mechanics, one of them was like, you know, home run. The other one was like, oh god, like I keep grounding out at first base.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that in testing too. Like, I can definitely see like what two mechanics you're talking about and identify where they are. Like, I think especially now, like coming up to ATP6, I like where both of them are.
I agree.
Yeah. Man, one of them took a long time though. I remember like tons of jade. It was like I remember like I was at a Chipotle, like trying to order food and talk about this mechanic with you guys at the same time, and like eventually they muted me because they didn't want to hear me order my burrito as they were talking about, as like 6 people were talking about playtesting.
I think we disconnected you.
You did. I'm like, I had this coming. I definitely had this coming. I thought. So I just ate my burrito in the Chipotle while talking about it, and they didn't kick me for whatever reason. I think the hardest part, and it's something that always happens in playtesting, but I felt it more this time around as a playtester, which is kind of funny to say. It's like it's developing these crushes on certain cards in playtesting. You're like, I'm playing this. I'm really excited, as a player, as a potential player of this card, to see where it goes and see what people play with this, and I'm afraid to change it. I'm afraid to say, like, ooh. It's always about having as much of an unbiased opinion as possible, which is really hard to do.
It's very difficult. It's very, very difficult.
So difficult. I felt that a lot this time around. I'm sure you know exactly what cards that I've been playtesting with that I'm really excited about. That I'm like, oh, gosh, I want this to stay this way, but you can't let it stay this way. It's really hard to say that sometimes.
Yeah, no, and it's what makes the process so surreal at the end of the day. It's like, we're all players. We all want to, let's be honest, we all want to play with busted shit, right? Like that's the truth. But it's like, for us, it's way more important that we get it right, we get it balanced, and it feels like as balanced as it possibly could be. And don't get me wrong, like we know, like I've said this a million times, like the difference of a health point, the difference of a star cost, the difference of an attack power, like it seems so marginal, right? But it's like that's the difference sometimes of make or breaking a card.
Yes.
Tiniest little bit of thing on a text box, and sometimes it's really difficult to find that particular wording on a card or that particular stat line on a character. Like it's not easy to do, like it's just not. But it's like now that we've been doing it for so long, ironically I think in this set particularly there were like several cards that like were presented and were just like they make all the sense. Ironically, all of those cards, I would say the majority of the cards in the set that do not have to do with a new mechanic were cards that like felt good on day one.
Yeah. I think that makes sense though, right?
Those cards that weren't pushing a new mechanic were like, yep, these cards are good, awesome, which is really comforting to us as designers and even the testers, because it's like, well, we're getting a real grasp of like what cards need to look like from day one, and that's helpful. Obviously, when you're testing a new mechanic, that's never going to be true, right? Like it's not possible. It shouldn't be possible in any which way. So that's where it gets a little tedious, obviously. But as a whole, ATP6 design was definitely strenuous at times, but I would not compare it to like the Legend Mode mechanic whatsoever, where that was like legitimately taxing on all of us to the point where the design process for like ATP5 started very late.
It really did. It was, man, I will never forget ATP4 playtesting at all. That was brutal.
It was. This was definitely a lot more fun.
It was. It was. I've had a lot of fun exploring these mechanics. Like part of me as a playtester, like I want to try to avoid playtesting with a lot of these mechanics, or with like everything at once, so I can enjoy the set when it comes out. So like I've touched one mechanic way more than I have touched the other as a playtester, but there's lots of playtesters that have touched up pretty much everything. So
Yeah. Shout out to Ziggy. He was our absolute marathon.
What a
runner for
house
for
this time. Yeah, everyone. There's always like one playtester tester that's a house for a set. Ziggy was this one for sure.
Yeah, he was the workhorse for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put it this way: the amount of games that Ziggy played in the last 2 months, it's not shocking to me at all that he went out and won a tournament like in that process. Because at the end of the day, his game mechanics are just above average.
Yeah, he's got so many reps in the game right now.
We're talking about Anthony's playing 10 matches a day some days, whereas opposed to certain players in the Patreon and in the events are like, oh, I only played in like the 4 or 5 matches that I played in that month, and he's doing that a day. So it's not shocking to me whatsoever that he won the last event. Like you put the work in, you put that many reps in, like you're gonna win events.
Yeah, you're gonna see results.
It's definitely a fact.
Yeah, absolutely. Who's Anthony?
That's Ziggy. But yeah,
I know.
Boy.
I know. That's
my boy Blue.
Quick question from Jason. I think this is just an easy question to answer. Will there ever be a Merc head?
Did he actually ask that question?
He did ask that question. Yeah, he did.
No, Jason, there will never be a mercenary head.
There could never be a mercenary head. We can go in more depth in Discord why that can never be, but there can never be a Merc head.
That'll never happen. Even if it were 5 stars, it still won't happen.
No, it did nothing other than just be a Merc.
Yeah,
let's see. looking at the rest of Wyatt's questions, we're actually making pretty good on all these questions. I think this is a good question to end off.
Okay.
Friday Night King of the Hill, coming into its own, was a great community advent this season. What were some other great things you saw from the community this season?
This season, or is that what it says? This season?
He doesn't say this season at the second line, but he says in the first line, so I'm assuming it's this season.
Okay. So I thought when I read it, the only thing I was gonna say was just the addition of league play in general. You know, when we did that last year, at that point we were kind of like an all-time high in the Patreon.
Yep.
And we just wanted to do our best to just give back to people playing games on like a day-to-day basis. Like, it's a different feeling in the game when it's like, oh, there's I have an event scheduled this week, so like in the next 2 days, like I'll just go and play my game, and that'll be the time I play the game.
Yeah.
Whereas opposed to where it's like, hey, I'm just gonna put a feeler out there, like on, I don't know, like Thursday at 6:15 at night, you know, like, hey, anyone want to play a game? Like I got an hour, you know. So when we introduced league play, I thought that was huge because it was like there was a ton of games. I mean, like literally, if we go back to Ogar, like we played like 1,000 games in like 4 months or something like that, like something outrageous.
It was ridiculous.
And there was a ton of players that were like over 500, 600, 700 games, like in the Discord, like during that heyday of that time. Now, granted, our numbers are definitely strong. We have less players, but there's still active players like doing it. You know, there's still reasons to do it. And King of the Hill is just on top of that now. Like King of the Hill is just like, hey, this is like the ultimate league play night. And you know, you took the initiative there, and I believe Stefan was like the inventor of the idea and the concept of it.
Definitely.
But you definitely took the ball and ran with it, you know, in like mid-January, and it's definitely been great. You know, like not every week is like 7-8 people, but you know,
it's not really supposed to be.
Not every week. Even if
not...
it's like, let's just say it's twice a month that you get like 7, 8, 10 people on Friday night. That's awesome. You know, like, that's totally awesome.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it's supposed to feel like, right? Like I wanted something to where like, you know, I wanted something that felt reminiscent of going back to my game store on Friday nights and getting a chance to jam out games with, you know, at least like even a couple people, you know. And I sometimes I would go to game stores and my game store and it'd be like 2 people, me and another person. Yeah. But we just jammed games out all night. It was awesome.
Just chilling, yeah.
Exactly.
It's more or less, it's the idea of, hey, someone more than likely is going to be there on Friday night, that if you want to play games on Friday night, you'll be able to.
Exactly. That's cool. That's exactly it. That's 100% what it is. And then just the King of the Hill format is, I think, is also just fun for streaming too as well. So,
yeah. It's just easy. It gets a lot of conversation, gets everybody on board. I think I do agree.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I would say, if it was in this season, then without doubt, it's a giant shout out to all of the incredible charitable people through the start of that season at Extra Life. You know, my Extra Life campaign ended up over it was like almost $2,200. That would have been impossible without the Discord and without the Transformers TCG community. You know, and that's like, obviously that is mostly a me thing. Obviously, like I get permission from the guys from the rest of ATP to like run our events through those charitable things, because, you know, obviously if someone had something against one of these charities or something like that, you know, I would take that into consideration. But, you know, for Toys for Tots and for Extra Life, and then obviously for the autism awareness, autism acceptance, like all those charity things that we do. I know I say it every time, but like I am so grateful that this community is so accepting of those things, and it's just so much fun to, you know, to play the game for a greater cause. And that's really what I do it for. It's you know, I've never been in a position in my life before where I felt like I could realistically do that, and this game has afforded me the opportunity to help all of those different charities, and that's my favorite thing with the community by far.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, and this is still a very small community, and just to,
right,
you know, I think $2,200, that's a ton of money in my opinion for a small community. Like that's nuts to see, and like consistency, right? Like
I won't take it all away. There was definitely some World of Warcraft stuff in the charity there, so I won't take everything away from them. But the concept of, I think we ran, 3 events in total for Extra Life through Transformers. So yeah, that's that's 3 events. That's a ton of money that goes through charity, and it's always fun giving out like the sweet prizes. I do my best to try and have like really particular prizes. I don't know that I have announced this live yet, but there will be a Lunar Bee up for raffle in the Autism Acceptance event next month. So we haven't had Lunar Bees in a while. Christian was afforded of technically winning 3 of those a season ago.
Yeah, buddy.
Or in season 3. So I'm not gonna make a top prize because I'm gonna stick to the 1 days as mostly everyone come play, and the prize structure is going to be kind of even, and I'm going to try and get everybody a little something for those. But the raffles are going to be like pretty top heavy. I'm going to try and put some really sweet stuff in the raffles for people that like, you know, they're going to want to donate and want to play and want to win. So that definitely look forward to that. I would say probably close toward the end of the month, I'll have a video discussing everything for that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Dan, we've been here for almost 2 hours now. I think this is a perfect spot to call it here. You know?
Yeah, I mean, had to cover 4 months, so.
Yeah,
you know.
Absolutely. It's about what I expected, to be fair.
Yeah,
so
me too.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Congratulations again to Dan for winning season 5 player championship, and shout out to all the players that finished really well in the event. All the people like Ziggy, and Richard. A lot of Dan. There was a lot of Dan first places here this time event. But congratulations to all those people that played well to win. Shout out to all the second placers too as well. So big shout out to them. Also Palmer.
Shout out to the top 8 of the season too. Check out those profiles. I'll have 2 more going up. I don't know exactly when this video is coming out, but by the end of the week, the calendar week, we'll have all the profiles up there. Me and Christian, we finished 1-2, so you gotta wait to read our profiles last. But shout out to everyone that seriously that played an event. We had 33 unique players. 22 players got points. Multiple different top 8s for different players, multiple wins and finals and stuff like that for even new players. Shout out to Jason being a new player.
Yeah, dude.
He hit the finals. He had a top 8, a top 4, like all those things. Like seriously, like good on you guys for giving it your best efforts this season. It was awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you all have a great day. See you around and take care.